I grew up on a small farm. My father was a homophobe. Um, I didn't even know what gay was. I was just this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed kid who knew I wasn't like everybody else. I didn't have a word for it. So back in Borden, I'd met this group of Navy guys, and because I'd originally signed up in the Navy, we clicked and we started talking, and we ended up spending a night in their room drinking. There was 4 guys and me, so we're 5 of us all together. Me and this other sailor, we drank 240 ounces of white rum between us. 18-year-old drinking a 40 ounce of rum. I was loaded. So they picked me up, and my barracks was across the parking lot, so to speak. So they picked me up and carried me back to put me in my bed. And I remember as this one guy, the leader of the gang, putting me in the bed, I reached out and gave him a hug and said, "Thank you. Sit here next, come jump in, sit next to me." And literally the blood drained from his face. And he reached in and leaned over and whispered in my ear, and I will never, ever forget this. Don't. I don't care if you're serious, you're joking. Don't ever, ever talk about anything like that ever, ever again. You will cost all of us our careers. And it just like put the fear of God into me. 2 weeks later, I was at the junior ranks mess, and there was skydiving classes, and I was going to do skydiving classes. I was really excited. I'm going to live the adventure. I'm going to be all I could be. Well, in the junior ranks mess, I'm talking to my friends, and behind me, I hear someone talking about skydiving classes the next morning, these classes that I intend to go to. It was the instructor. Now, this guy should never have been allowed in the junior ranks mess. Civilians, senior officers, not allowed. And he would have been a senior officer, so he should not have been there, but he was. So he, like any predator, isolated me from the crew, took me to someplace else, got me really, really drunk, took me back to his place for pizza, and then insisted I stayed. And somehow in the middle of the night, his hands were down my pants, and take it from there. That was sort of the first inkling that while I was being sexually assaulted, that I may be gay, that this, there's certain aspects of it that wasn't bad, not that any of it was good. But at the same time, I've just been sexually assaulted by a man. But now I can't tell anybody, because if I do, I'm going to be kicked out of the service. This is what I feel. And it just created this real sense of negative and degenerative feelings about who I am as a human being and as a sexual being. And then in the 80s, the whole cruising mentality, meeting people in parks and washrooms, it became a curse. I did have friends, and I have friends from the Army to this day still. Recently, I've even had people reach out and say they would follow me anywhere. I think I made a serious impact while I was in the service, and I have since. I was driven out. Even if I wanted to stay, I wouldn't have been allowed. And by that time, the abuse was so terrific. Like even when I did my TQ5 training, which I was kicked out, failed both of them. I was in the field 98% of the time prior to going. I had no preparation. I had no downtime. I was 6 years a private, to tell you like the level of abuse. And I've never met anybody else who was bright and articulate and knew what they were doing. My first year there, we did a trauma medicine course. Me, the chief warrant officer, and the base doctor were the only 3 people who scored over 98%. So I knew what I was doing, and yet I was still a private. So something was going on. I had to leave the Army. I was brighter, and because the Army wasn't going to give me any, like my father wasn't giving me any opportunity to advance, and I knew I was brighter and had much more to offer the world than they were going to allow me. It was like I had to leave. also in that last year, I went for a ride with my major, and after that, he wrote a letter saying he wouldn't recommend me for renewal, and he there was no reason given. When I saw the story, I thought, oh my God, they're talking about me. You know, that was the first impetus. They're talking about me. So I inquired and joined right away. First of all, for some repatriation, and maybe like that 18-year-old who was naive enough to join the army, still naive enough to believe that this was going to be a benefit to my life. I've also been back to the base. I think it was 2012 for the 100th anniversary of the field ambulance. And I took some time to talk to, surprisingly, a couple of women, because at the end of the event, all the guys left, and there was a woman, a captain, and a corporal. 2 women left to clean up. So first of all, no, things haven't changed. And second, I asked them directly, have things changed? And they said, yes, yes. On the surface, it all looks good. It's all a polish and veneer. Beneath it, nothing has changed. It is still the same. And the marginalized and the vulnerable are still horribly abused by the chain of command. So I would say yes, because there is an adventure and there is an opportunity, but go in with your eyes wide open and a grain of salt. Because it's not the place to be loud and proud. You can be quiet and gaze, but not loud and proud.